They say the West was built on iron, gold, and blood. But some stories, they're built on something else entirely. On whispers and shadows. On mysteries that even the sharpest minds couldn't unravel. This is one of those stories. A story about a treasure that didn't just disappear, but vanished into thin air. This is Blackwood Creek, a place so remote it feels like it's at the very edge of the world. For years, it was a ghost town, a relic of a failed gold rush. But then, a new vein was discovered, and suddenly, life rushed back in. People came from all corners, their eyes gleaming with the promise of fortune. And where there is fortune, there is always a marshal. His name was Silas Thorne. He was the kind of man who didn't need to shout to be heard. His reputation spoke for him. A quiet man, a straight shooter, and a mind like a steel trap. He'd seen it all, claim jumpers, cattle rustlers, and outlaws with names that became legends. But what happened on that cold autumn night was unlike anything he had ever encountered. It was the night the express train left Blackwood Creek, carrying the first major shipment of gold from the new mine. 500 pounds of raw, shining fortune secured in a reinforced boxcar, destined for the big city. The train left right on schedule, its whistle echoing through the valley. But it never made it to the next stop. A mile outside of town, it was found sitting silent on the tracks. The conductor, the engineer, and the guards were all found unharmed, tied up and gagged, but otherwise safe. The strange part? The boxcar doors were still bolted shut from the inside. There were no signs of forced entry. No bullet holes. No shattered locks. And when Silas finally pried the doors open, he was met with a sight that made the blood run cold in his veins. The boxcar was empty. Every last ounce of gold was gone. It was a perfect crime, a silent theft that defied all logic. The only thing left behind was a single cryptic clue carved into the wooden floor, right where the last crate of gold had been. A perfectly etched symbol of a raven holding a key in its beak. For Silas, the mystery had just begun. With the raven and key symbol as his only lead, Silas knew this wasn't just about a vanished fortune. It was about something else, something deeper. He started his investigation the old-fashioned way, by talking to anyone who might know a thing or two about local legends. The miners, the saloon keepers, the old prospectors, they all had stories about the land being cursed or haunted, but no one could connect it to a recent event. His search led him to the local library, a dusty shack filled with forgotten books and town records. There he found a small, worn journal. It belonged to an old miner named Jedediah Cross, who had disappeared 6 months prior while exploring the mountains. Jedediah's final entries were filled with frantic scribbles about a secret cave and an ancient tribe of protectors who guarded the land. He wrote of their strange power, the ability to make things disappear not by magic, but by knowing the land so intimately they could walk through it without a trace. Silas knew it sounded crazy, but it was the only thing that explained the impossible robbery. As he was about to leave, a young woman with sharp eyes and a weary demeanor approached him. Her name was Raina. She had been watching him, and the moment he touched the journal, she stepped forward. She revealed that Jedediah was her grandfather and that the journal was a family heirloom. She explained that she wasn't looking for gold. She was looking for the truth about her grandfather's disappearance and her family's legacy. She then showed him a similar symbol tattooed on her wrist, a raven with a key. She wasn't just a descendant of the tribe, she was one of them. Despite his initial suspicion, Silas saw the honesty in her eyes. Together, they began to decipher the symbols in the journal. They were not a map but a series of riddles and celestial coordinates. The trail led them deeper into the mountains, away from the well-trodden paths of the miners. They moved silently through the dense forest, with Reyna's knowledge of the land guiding them through hidden passes and over treacherous terrain. Their journey was far from simple. They quickly realized they weren't alone. Mysterious masked figures seemed to appear and disappear in the periphery, watching their every move. They were silent and swift, moving through the trees like shadows. Silas drew his pistol, but the figures were always just out of reach, melting back into the woods before he could get a clear shot.
They're watching us.
They're not thieves, Silas. They're protectors. They don't want us to find the cave.
The figures finally attacked. Not with guns, but with traps and quick, disarming strikes. Silas and Reyna were separated. Silas found himself in a frantic chase, firing at the masked figures as they darted between the trees. He was a master with his pistol, but these were no ordinary men. They used the land itself as their weapon, ducking behind rocks and appearing from behind trees as if they had materialized out of thin air. It was a chaotic, desperate struggle, and Silas felt the cold dread of an unknown enemy for the first time in his life. He was a man of logic and order, but this place was different. He finally cornered one of them in a clearing, but as he was about to fire, the figure simply faded away, leaving nothing but a lingering scent of pine and dust. It was then that Silas understood what Reyna had meant. This wasn't a mystical power. It was an ancient, practiced skill of camouflage and movement, a deep-rooted knowledge of the land passed down through generations. These people weren't fighting to steal something, they were fighting to protect it. Reyna, using her superior knowledge of the mountains, found him, shaken but unharmed. She led him to a narrow crevice, a place so well hidden it was impossible to see from the outside. Inside, they found the secret cave Jedediah had written about. It was a breathtaking, massive cavern, lit by natural light filtering through cracks in the ceiling. But there was no gold, just a single, magnificent wall covered in ancient pictographs. The mural told a story, not of treasure, but of a sacred mountain, a place of spiritual importance to the tribe. It explained the gold as a blessing from the earth, meant to be left untouched. The tribe believed that to take it would anger the mountain spirits, leading to drought and famine. For generations, they had watched over the gold, keeping the location a secret, using their knowledge of the land to create the illusion of ghosts and mysteries to ward off outsiders. And then they saw it. A new, jarring addition to the ancient mural. A crude drawing of a train and a grinning man in a suit. That's when the truth hit them. The masked figures were not the thieves. They were the original protectors, attempting to ward off the real culprit. And the real culprit wasn't some shadowy outlaw. It was someone right out in the open. A fine piece of history, isn't it? Standing in the entrance was the railroad tycoon himself, Sterling. His face was smug, a cruel smile on his lips. He explained his part in the grand scheme. He had ordered his men to secretly dig a tunnel from the train line, right into the heart of the mountain, a simple, logical solution that everyone else had overlooked in favor of a fantastical story. He had hired the masked figures not to rob the train, but to create a spectacle, a mystery that would distract everyone while his real men simply moved the gold from the boxcar, through the tunnel, to a waiting carriage on the other side of the mountain. The raven symbol? A calculated detail meant to make the mystery more believable. Sterling wasn't a man of magic, he was a man of deceit and business, and he thought he had pulled off the perfect crime. The standoff was set. In the heart of the mountain, surrounded by ancient history and a newly exposed lie, Silas stood face to face with Sterling. Sterling wasn't an outlaw, he was a businessman with a gun, and he was confident. But Silas was a lawman who had spent his life reading not just men, but the land itself. He knew this cavern wasn't just a hideout, it was a trap, and he was ready to spring it.
You built a tunnel to steal the gold, Sterling. But you didn't account for the cave's natural defenses. Defenses? Don't tell me you believe in this superstitious nonsense.
As Sterling raised his pistol, Silas didn't draw. Instead, he kicked a small pile of rocks near a fissure in the wall. The movement was calculated. It wasn't about a fast draw, it was about exploiting Sterling's ignorance. The rocks dislodged a larger boulder, which slammed into a natural support beam. The sound of the collapse was deafening, echoing through the cavern as a section of the tunnel caved in, trapping Sterling and his escape route. He was caught, not by a bullet, but by the very mountain he thought he had conquered. You knew this place. This is insane. Silas simply holstered his gun and looked at the trapped man. He wasn't a man of rage or vengeance, he was a man of justice. With Sterling captured and the tunnel blocked, the last piece of the puzzle fell into place. Raina and Silas found the gold at the end of the collapsed tunnel, just as Sterling had said, and arranged for it to be returned. The story of the ghost train became the stuff of legend in Blackwood Creek, but the official report was deliberately vague. Silas didn't mention the tribe or the sacred mountain. He knew some things were better left to mystery, a testament to the unwritten rules of the frontier. He honored the silent protectors and their right to their land. The gold was back where it belonged, but the true treasure wasn't the fortune itself. It was the understanding that some things are more valuable than money. Some legends aren't just stories, they're a deep truth about the land and the people who protect it. The most mysterious heist in the West wasn't about a missing treasure. It was about what remains when a treasure is found. A secret, a respect, a reminder that some treasures vanish without a trace not because they are gone, but because they have found a deeper, more sacred place to rest. The mystery of the vanishing gold would continue to live on, a whisper on the wind, a secret the Wild West would keep forever.